Most people are targeting the wrong names on waivers right now, but in week 6, I see 10 players hiding in plain sight that your league mates are ignoring. But if this is your first time here, I'm Joe. I've helped thousands of people just like you win their fantasy leagues over the last decade, and I plan to do the same for you in this video. I start off every video with some urgent fantasy football news and answering some timely Q&A. Then we get into today's one key topic, so feel free to skip ahead, but let's get right into it. By the way, before I forget, I'm adding 2 videos this week. The first one is going to be like a rest of season Q&A, so we kind of do a little bit of Q&A on each of these videos, but I want to do like a full video diving into more than just like 5 or 6 of them. So if you have any rest of the season trade targets, trade away type of questions, combinations that you're debating, different things that you're trying to do from a trade perspective, this is like around the perfect time to be making a lot of deals. So please drop those in the comments, and then later on this week I'll go through some rest of the season stuff with you guys. Also, if you have some start sit questions, going to do a separate video for that as well. We've been doing live streams on Sunday morning, but I always end up just flooded with these start sits. So I'm going to do basically a rapid fire Q&A type of style start sit answering video that will go out later this week as well. So drop those in the comments if you have any guys that you're wrestling with, guys that you're not sure who to start this coming week in week 6. I'm going to be reading every single one of those questions, so drop them there now. The news item that everyone wants to talk about is Demercado obviously almost breaks a 75-yard touchdown run, only to drop the ball right at the goal line before he breaks the plane, ultimately leading to a touchback, and then the Cardinals losing this game overall. Absolutely gutted when I see this type of stuff, because, I mean, sure, there's a lot of reasons to be upset. From a fantasy perspective, there's definitely some people that picked him up and probably started him, as we didn't know where this actual split was going to be in this backfield. But I personally kind of feel for the guy a little bit. Any type of move like that, especially for a borderline like starter, is pretty devastating for his career. So I think that's rough. Obviously, the fantasy spin on this is Michael Carter getting the majority of the work in this game anyway, at about 23 touches to just 3 for Demercado. I think that he's obviously the guy that you want until Trey Benson returns, but you hate to see it. On the positive side, nice to see wide receiver Christian Watson returning from the injured reserve. Obviously, that ACL injury in week 18 of last season. So now they have 21 days to activate Watson from the IR. Definitely some implications here. We're going to talk a little bit more about Romeo Doubs later on in this video, but nice to see the Packers wide receiver trending in the right direction. And anyone watching me for a long time knows that I love Stefon Diggs. He was a part of one of my biggest fantasy and betting wins of my entire career, so I always have a little bit of a soft spot for Stefon Diggs. Really nice to see him in a revenge spot go completely crazy. 10 of 12 targets for 146 yards. Didn't get in the box for a touchdown, but was really nice to see him perform well against Buffalo. And I think we were basically telling everyone to try and trade for Diggs. The last couple weeks, I think he's made the video. So hopefully you're able to acquire him before he starts to break out. This offense in general is looking a lot better than I think a lot of people realize they'd be. Yeah, this game in general was a pretty big upset in Buffalo. The Patriots stunning the Bills on Sunday night. Drake May, throw for throw with Josh Allen, finishing 22 of 30 for 273 yards. Obviously, a lot of that went to Stefon Diggs, like we just talked about, but nice to see them get that 52-yard game-winning field goal just 15 seconds left. That ends Buffalo's perfect start. For fantasy managers, though, I think that the real signal here is that the Patriots offense might actually have some juice. So we've talked about Drake May a ton on this channel, but I think the wideouts in general, maybe even the backfield, they're going to have a lot more relevancy down the stretch here. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this one. Rico Dowdle, another really interesting story out of Carolina. Obviously, he just went crazy against the Dolphins, 206 yards in that comeback win. The Panthers erased a 17-0 deficit to beat Miami. His first 200-yard game as a pro. We know he signed a 1-year deal with Carolina after Dallas basically let him walk, but he didn't hold back in postgame, saying that the Cowboys better buckle up when they meet next week. So for fantasy managers, seems like a pretty bold statement for you guys. If he keeps running like this, it's not going to be a committee, and he's not going to be behind Chuba Hubbard for long. So potential league winner in this kind of ambiguous backfield heading into a revenge game. Rico Dowdle. Let's go. Tough scene for the Chargers. Rookie running back Hampton spotted in a walking boot after their loss to Washington. He exited in the second half, never came back. Kamani Vidal and Kasan Haskins splitting touches the rest of the way. The injury didn't look major, but anytime you see a boot, there's definitely some reason for concern. So fantasy-wise, if Hampton ends up sitting, we're looking at a pretty ugly backfield timeshare against Miami. But that kind of setup can tank both guys' value. So prayers over to Amari and Hampton owners. We'll keep an eye on this one as well. On the positive side, Jaden Daniels came back and absolutely lit it up in this game. So come back on the other side of that game in general. Jaden Daniels returning from that knee sprain immediately sparks the Commanders' 27-10 win. threw for 231 and a TD, added 39 on the ground. That's what we really wanted to see from him in general. Is he going to be hesitant with that knee brace? It doesn't seem like he was. Obviously, his poise in general stands out. His teammates were calling him under the pillow cool and different. So yeah, cool. For fantasy managers, obviously this is huge. If he's healthy again, he's right back in that dual threat QB1 conversation, especially when McLaurin and Noah Brown are healthy. Wheels up for Jaden Daniels owners. Yeah, I thought this was a cool story. Obviously, David Montgomery playing for the first time in front of his sister, who was paralyzed in a pretty tragic accident. Nice to see him get in the end zone twice. Obviously, once on the ground, he throws one through the air, which was really cool. But this story was kind of a fun one. 14 games now where each of them have found the end zone in the same game. That ties Daryl Johnston and Emmitt Smith for the most by teammates ever. So the ultimate headache in some ways for fantasy managers. Both of them are kind of must starts, but neither is really leaving the field, and I guess leaving enough on the field for like a true RB1 ceiling. Obviously, Gibbs has some explosive value, but it's still going to be always capped a little bit by the touchdowns that David Montgomery does take. Both these guys are being used in the passing game as well. So I guess as long as this offense keeps producing touchdowns, it's great. We're not fading it. We're not sitting it, but it does kind of suck a little bit for the Gibbs ceiling in particular, but cool stat. By the way, if you're looking for a little more direct access to me, I do have a membership community called the Fantasy Accelerator where I get to every single question as well as we give you everything else that you need to win your league. So you can check that out, fantasyaccelerator.com, hit the first link in the description, see if it's for you. If you're not ready for the full kind of community yet, I do have my top 150 rankings completely free at top150free.com. It's the same rankings that I'm using to set all of my lineups every single week. So check that out. There's a link in the description for that as well. Again, throw your email in here. It's completely free. All right, let's jump into some questions, Q&A, all that good stuff from the last few videos. Just wanted to flag these comments quickly. Appreciate you guys that are watching the touchdown picks video. It's been a really fun one that I've been dropping on Saturdays. So let me know if you guys want to see more of these or if I should do more prop betting type of long form videos in general. You guys let me know. On this side of things, I wanted to go through just some of the questions, rest of season type of questions as well, but also wanted to flag that I'm going to be doing more of these going forward, that maybe the video is only going through your rest of season questions, because I think these are kind of fun to do. We've been doing them on Sunday mornings on the live stream, but I'm thinking about doing a separate video this week that only answers like trade targets, trade aways, kind of what I think rest of the season and who would win on what type of trade type of thing. So exactly kind of what we're doing today in this video. Let me know if you guys want to see that. Should I trade Romeo Doubs and Kenneth Walker for Emeka Egbuka and Travis Etienne, or should I try and get more from the deal? He has Ted McMillan. My other receivers are QC, Rice, Evans, Jennings, Diggs. Who of these should I try and get? Yeah, I think to me, I would still prefer to have Romeo Doubs and Kenneth Walker. It is pretty close though in general. Rome is like a pretty clear alpha at this point. I still would rather have Egbuka than Kenneth Walker or Travis Etienne. But the combination together, I think I might just value Rome a little bit more. But Egbuka is an absolute stud. So I think that that's at least the interesting side of this. If you wanted to swap Etienne for someone like Tet McMillan, I think I'd prefer Tet to Etienne, but I prefer Tet also to guys like Juwan Jennings and Evans. So hopefully that helps. Would you drop Golden for DK? I still have DK ahead of Matthew Golden in my rest of season rankings currently. Bill Godwin for Javonte. I have Kyron and Aaron Jones as my other running backs. Yeah, I think I still would rather have Javonte. Yeah, than Chris Godwin. What else we got? Rest of season. Traded Benson away for Genty. Now I'm thinking about trading Genty back for Garrett Wilson. This is who you have. So we have some injuries here to work through as well. Yeah, I would say I still would rather have Genty than Garrett Wilson, personally. I have him a little bit higher. So for me, I would prefer the Genty side of that one. The offensive line thing is scary, though. I traded Barkley for Derrick Henry and Rice. Feel like I won, but making me nervous to lose a top 5 running back. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Derrick Henry right now. I would say that I still would prefer, like if you're a team that's like 1-3, 1-4 at this point, getting viable starters is a priority. So that would be a situation where trading Saquon away would make some sense. Yeah, the Derrick Henry stuff, no Lamar for at least right now. His efficiency kind of fell off a cliff a little bit this past week against Houston, which was disappointing. But yeah, Saquon's the best player in this deal by a mile, but if you need starters, I think I'm okay with this one. Let's move over here to this other video. We got some other questions that came in throughout the week that didn't get addressed. Should I trade Chase Brown for JCM? Also, should I try and trade away Pickens for Sutton, or Waddle, just keep Pickens? Yeah, the first part of it, Chase Brown versus Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I still prefer Chase Brown. Yeah. Pickens versus Sutton versus Waddle. I think the order for me on this one would be Waddle first. I think he sees a pretty significant spike without Tyreek, personally. I would probably go Waddle, Sutton, Pickens. Very close between Pickens and Sutton. But I've been pretty impressed in general with what Waddle's been able to do so far in the small sample without Tyreek. So I would put him first. Hope that helps. I traded Diggs for Mason. Is that fine? Sure. I think those guys are really close. I prefer Jordan Mason of those two. And like I said, I love Stefon Diggs, and it was great to see what he was able to do this past week in that revenge game. I think I still prefer the bell cow running back, but the gap is closing, so maybe it is a decent target. It depends on what your team needs, my man. At this moment, I think it's Jordan Mason for me, though. Should I trade Egbuka for Mason? No, I would not. That's the other side of this. I prefer Egbuka to Jordan Mason, personally. What do you think about Devontae Adams and Evan Ingram for Tyler Warren and Brian Thomas Jr.? Yeah, I mean, I like the second side of that. I think I'm probably just a little bit more bullish on Tyler Warren than most people. Obviously, he scores again this past week. Brian Thomas Jr., we'll see how he does on Monday Night Football. At the time of this recording, Monday Night Football has not happened just yet. But yeah, actively trying to get Devontae Adams too. So this is a tough one. I think Devontae Adams is the best player in this trade. So if you don't need Tyler Warren, I obviously would much rather have Devontae Adams than Brian Thomas Jr. at this point. Watch him go off for like 200 yards, and that looked really stupid. That's where I'm at, though. Trade Chase Brown and Jamison Williams for A.J. Brown and Breece Hall. Chase Brown, Jamison Williams, A.J. Brown, and Breece Hall. Yeah, I think I want the A.J. Brown side of that, even though it's been a little bit scary. Jamison Williams, they just haven't been able to get him going this year. So the Breece side is the side that I would want to be on. I have both of those guys valued ahead in rest of season right now. Should I trade Achane and Henry? I have CMC, Hampton, Mason, Trey Benson at run, or Trey Henderson at running back. Yeah. I prefer the Achane side of this one. Not by like a massive margin, but the role that Achane has right now is completely insane. So I'm in on that. Is Romeo Doubs and Dalton Kincaid for Kyren Williams a good trade? Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about Romeo Doubs here shortly, but I think I prefer Kyren in that side. I just don't have Dalton Kincaid very high in my rankings. It gets so spread out there right now. It's tough. I have Taylor and Jacobs and looking to trade for Jaylen Warren. Would you trade Jaylen Warren for Chase Brown or Woody Marks? So essentially the question comes down to the order of these players, right? So I would have Chase Brown first. I would have Jaylen Warren. They're really close. So it basically becomes, do I want to trade Warren for Chase Brown or Woody Marks? Woody Marks is the one that I have the highest of these guys, believe it or not. So yeah, I guess the answer is Warren for Woody Marks for me. Hope that helps. Should I pick up Aomanar or Travis Hunter off waivers? Travis Hunter for me, rest of season. I don't think either of these guys should be on waivers though. So if they are, yeah, I think Travis Hunter for me. I know he's like probably playing more snaps than we would like to see on defense, a little bit more on the offensive side. But yeah, the winner of that deal, I think, is still Travis Hunter. All right, enough is enough. One key topic, 10 must-add players in fantasy football before week 6. We're talking through waiver targets. I got 5 running backs and 5 wide receivers to get into today. The first one, he's on the thumbnail. Let's talk about Rico Dowdle. Available in 41.3% of leagues. He's another one of these guys that we've been talking about for a few weeks now. So hopefully he's not on your waiver wire. 23 carries, 206 yards, and a touchdown. Really interesting in general, like how he was able to take over and help them kind of lead them all the way back to this huge win. So Chuba Hubbard has been managing a calf issue. So the staff really kind of let him heal a little bit, which is great. Also, week 6, home matchup noted a little bit as, I guess, definitely a revenge spot again. And he talked about it a little bit in his post game, which we talked about earlier, but his touches have really been climbing and hit double digits in weeks 3 through 4, despite even like that backup label. So like the role was basically growing before we even saw a boom here. 7 of his 10 week 4 touches came before halftime. So the early game trust, it's not just garbage time, which we do see sometimes as well. And he's been getting in the end zone, all of that. So this Cowboys defense, it's like start him if you got him. How much have we been able to do against the Cowboys this year has been pretty crazy, honestly. Even if he's been a little bit inconsistent at times, this is a pretty smash spot for him against Dallas. Obviously, these shootouts we've been seeing all year for them. Carolina just rallies to beat Miami. I do think that they're going to just continue to ride what's been working, right? So he's a must add before week 6. I'm prioritizing him with a pretty large bid today if he's out there. Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, pretty. I mean, a lot of people missed this game in London. Oh no, this was the Dublin game 2 weeks ago. So before the bye week for Pittsburgh, they are able to beat Minnesota in Dublin. 25 touches for 134 yards, 2 rushing TDs when Jaylen Warren was inactive. We had a late inactive for Jaylen Warren last week. So Kenneth Gainwell basically proved that he can be a 3-down and goal line back. He scored from the 1 and the 4. Plus he had some bigger runs as well, 15 yards, some chunk plays in that same game, which is really nice to see as well. 24-21 was the final of that one in Europe. What was usually, I guess, the one thing I'm looking for with these type of situations is, are they going to be used on third downs as well? Played a big chunk of snaps, but also just gave us a floor of really just the passing game usage as well. The short yardage situations also just shows a lot of trust, right? So he punched in that 1-yard TD in week 3, but also had 85 scrimmage yards on 23 touches through the first 3 weeks. So they were already kind of using him where it counts a little bit there, but even in like a lighter workload situation in week 2, still saw red zone work. So it's really been just like a constant drumbeat for him. Even if it ends up being a tough matchup coming up here against Cleveland, second fewest running back fantasy points after week 4. I think that Gainwell already owns enough of the third down backs and also has already proved that he can handle a pretty big workload. So I do like him quite a bit. The next guy probably shouldn't be on your waivers, but he is available in 58.1% of leagues right now. Michael Carter. We just saw, what happened with Demercado. We don't need to talk more about that, but I'd be shocked if he's going to get many touches until Trey Benson returns. So I think it's Michael Carter's job. He already saw 23 touches last week, which was pretty crazy. So we have some clarity on this role, and we don't really have to guess a ton overall. So I think if these games can continue to stay tight, I think that the carries are pretty live. We might not get 23 of them again, but I do think that they're going to continue to be run heavy in those situations. So week 6, tough matchup again. Colts have been really good against running backs, top 6 team. They kind of funnel production to wide receivers, but I do think just adding Michael Carter is an absolute no-brainer if he's out there. Isaiah Davis, available in 94% of leagues. So if you've gone through a couple of these players and you're like, Joe, these guys are not available in my leagues. I'm not sure where you play, but they're not available for me. Here's another one for you. Isaiah Davis. So RB2, that seat just kind of opened up, obviously, with Allen going to be out 8 to 12 weeks. And on the IR, Davis is kind of first in line behind Breece Hall. And there is some value in this backfield in general. We've been able to see them be extremely run heavy. Obviously, Justin Fields there as well. Positive and a negative. They have to focus on stopping him on the ground, but also he can take some stuff away on the ground as well. But realistically, this is just like a backfield that you want to have access to. He's already been on the field a decent amount as well, and he's been using the passing game a little bit also. So I think he's kind of like that contingency trigger if we get anything, anything negative from Breece Hall after kind of leaving in the second quarter. If like he for some reason can't go or is limited in any way, it's kind of a plug and play scenario for Davis in those games. So I think he's kind of like the cheapest next man up that we have going into week 6. So like I said, Allen's out. The Hall exit shows that like these insurance type of backs, if you just have them sitting on your bench, they are super valuable when they hit. Another guy we've been talking about for a few weeks now that should not be on your waiver wire, but probably is, he's available in 94% of leagues, is Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller, back-to-back usage bumps. Week 4, 11 carries, 65 yards, touchdown. Week 5, 10 carries for 41 yards. more touches or more carries than Kamara in this game. It's possible that they try and trade Kamara, guys. If that happens, Kendre Miller is going to be an absolute smash. So between the tackles, he's been really good. He's been more effective than Alvin Kamara between the tackles as well. We got Taysom Hill back, so that kind of takes away some of the, some of the upside, touchdown upside, like these weird short yardage situations where Taysom comes in there. But I don't think this is necessarily like a 1 week blip. I think that it's going to continue to be a committee approach. I don't think that's a fluke. But if he can get like 10 carries per game, keep scoring touchdowns, he has like a little bit of like flex appeal during bye weeks. But if we end up seeing a trade from Kamara gets injured, he ends up being a really nice asset to have on your bench. So I think that the early down juice is definitely his for now, and is a must add in all formats if he's out there. So running backs, to recap: Kendre Miller, Isaiah Davis, Michael Carter if he's there, Kenneth Gainwell if he's there, Rico Dowdle if he's there. Try to keep it to guys that are at least available in a half of leagues for the most part. But let's talk about wide receivers. First wide receiver today, Kendrick Bourne. Available in 93.5% of ESPN leagues. Wide receiver one usage that opened up basically by the injuries that we've seen. So 10 of 11 targets, career high 142 yards, leads the team in receptions, leads the team in yards, ties for the team lead in targets. Why it matters, I guess, is with Jennings still battling ankle and rib injuries. Pearsall was out with a knee injury. Brandon Ayuk, we'll see if he ever gets back. Bourne just proved that he can handle the volume when this room starts to thin out a little bit. And Mac Jones has been really good, honestly, when he's been in there. They get that OT win. Really just a signal that he's playing over the alternatives, which is super valuable when we're looking at a situation like this. So Demarcus Robinson, 38% of the snaps, 68% of the snaps for Bourne. So the coaches have kept him clearly ahead. So if he ends up being like that wide receiver 3, and the injuries translate into like real routes, real targets, not just empty depth, I think he's an interesting filler right now, and clearly has some chemistry with Mac Jones. So he's already put that on film. Week 2, 3 for 3, 32 yards. So was even used a little bit in that scenario. So while this offense has been banged up and really just kind of establishing some timing, I think that his floor in general is higher than people realize. So he's a priority ad going in this game versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has been pretty stingy against wide receivers, but they have played in some shootouts. So if this game ends up being a situation where we always seem to get efficiency from San Francisco, will we get some extra volume? I think that Bourne is kind of a volume driven like wide receiver 3 flex, while the pass catchers on this team are still healing up a little bit. Let's talk about Ryan Flournoy. Not basically rostered in any leagues right now, but he's been able to take away a ton of volume with Lamb battling this ankle injury, right? So Lamb's still expected to miss multiple weeks. It looks like this role is going to be alive for week 6 even. In week 5, he tied Ferguson for the team lead in targets with 9. It seemed like every single time that Pickens was not available, or I guess not open because Sauce basically erased him at times in this game, they were basically just looking to Flournoy. So we have some big play proof already. 6 for 9, 114 yards. He had a gain of 40 yards, a gain of 46 yards. So like that spike ability is something you usually don't get for a guy just grabbing him on the waiver wire for an injury filler at wide receiver, right? So I really like this. And then just trying to get access to these Dallas games. They're back and forth. The defenses are terrible. So a scoring environment that really just fuels passing volume and spikes for players just like this, I think are super appealing. The Cowboys have allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks through 4 weeks, constant shootouts, keeping like wide receiver volume alive. 9 targets inside of like that pace up context is really valuable. I don't know if this is just like a 1 week blip or if this is like a priority waiver ad, but I'm leaning towards the latter at this point. So really like the idea of grabbing him. He's available pretty much everywhere. A guy that's probably not available everywhere, but just a price check here on Josh Downs, if he's available in 57% of leagues. I really like the usage bounce that we saw here. 6 targets, 6 catches, 54 yards in week 5, matches a season best from week 2. I think this just signals a little bit of more like renewed involvement here. So he led Indy in both targets and receptions in week 2. The staff is willing to kind of scheme him some early looks. And when they choose to, like they have featured him at times. This Colts offense has been wildly efficient with Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor. The environment, I think, can support a few different like auxiliary producers. So elite target earner per route, we know that about Downs. He was targeted on 29.4% of his routes last season. That trailed only Puka Nacua and Malik Neighbors. So elite signal for earning volume. I'm not ready to give up on this guy. He's the guy that I'm definitely adding if I have a slot. And if he's available, obviously. Production, I think despite the crowd of, like, obviously the emergence of Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman Jr., week 5, I mean, Alec Pierce was out, Adonai Mitchell was benched. Down really answered to me with, obviously he had a near season best line for him. He hasn't scored this season. TD variance remain, I think, a positive lever, because if his usage starts to spike a little bit, we might see the touchdown spike as well. And we might see a little bit more opportunity against the Cardinals, 5th most passing yards allowed, most attempts against in the league. So the matchup tilts a little bit towards some more wide receiver volume here in week 6. So really like the idea of grabbing him if he's available. Another guy that you might have forgot about because they were just on their bye, Romeo Doubs, available in 63.3% of leagues. Really just the open targets with Jaden Reed out until at least November. We'll see when we get Christian Watson out. We talked about him earlier today. Just leading Green Bay in targets with 8, turned 6 catches into 3 touchdowns. The spikes are going to be there. He's scored touchdowns his entire career. All 3 of these scores came in the short game. So they were really just kind of like, I think it's not even a bad thing in some ways. It's really just like a broken roll, like a bankable roll at this point, not like a broken coverage deep. His longest grab was just 18 yards, which isn't ideal, but he's schemed like these high leverage looks around the goal line. I think this is really interesting because Jordan Love trusts him around like the high leverage areas, which is really good. So he's always kind of had that red zone trust. The touchdown spikes are going to kind of come out of nowhere at times, but I think he's a really interesting bye week stash with Reed sidelined, and then really just we're not sure exactly what's going to happen with this offense. So spending on waivers to kind of stash Doubs, I think is an interesting approach here, and we'll see if he has a soft landing spot here. Next, Xavier Legette. Available in 72.4% of leagues. This is the last player that we're going to talk about today. Week 5, he bounces back a little bit, returning from that hamstring injury. He does score 31 yards in this game and a score. Limited volume. I think at least shows that his role is alive as he kind of ramps back up to full usage with that hamstring. So the field time was really the week 2 line. That's what I keep going back to. 1 for 8. Like that was a little bit scary, but he continues to run a ton of routes. The matchup tailwind that we have coming in for Dallas is really the big signal here. We're just trying to get more players against Dallas whenever we can. Pass friendly pace is going to be way up. And I think that Bryce Young, there's always going to be a little bit of concerns on he ended the season so well, but he started this season so poor. A full-time route runner, though, against this Dallas defense, I still think is really like an add it before it pops situation. So he scores last week. If we can get some more usage and some more volume, I really like the idea of this being like a very bullish matchup boosted bet on some pretty healthy legs and just live red zone involvement in general. Again, later on this week, I'm going to drop a new video that goes through as many questions as I can possibly get through on start sits, but also trade targets, rest of season, all of that good stuff. So drop them in the comments below and you'll see them answered. I'm going to try and get to every single one of them later this week.